A vossa equipa é muito grande, muito talentosa e a gente jovem como nós no Safarka só queremos bola para a frente e acreditamos que vai ser daqui algo espetacular.
Em primeiro lugar, por uma questão de target, achamos que o target da CFM é o mesmo que a TEDx e que as TED Talks.
É um evento que faz todo o sentido promover, porque o mundo precisa de ideias novas, precisa de histórias inspiradoras.
É um target mais universitário e sabíamos que existia muita fome, para usar uma palavra que nos é muito familiar, de conhecimento e ao mesmo tempo uma exploração de temas que, quando nos foram apresentados, nos pareceu muito interessante. Também nos permitia pensar numa lógica de aproximação do nosso produto, que está muito mais focado na venda online.
Se há coisa que todos nós nos tivemos que adaptar nestes novos tempos que estamos a viver, é fazer muito mais coisas no online.
No entanto, com a evolução e com a pandemia e com a vossa reinvenção, digamos assim, e parabéns também pelo facto de terem dado a volta ao tema e de estarmos aqui hoje a falar de um evento que vai concretizar. Continuamos a ver essa oportunidade a existir, com a vantagem de estarmos ainda mais próximos, porque neste momento estamos onde todos os nossos clientes estão, que é online.
As pessoas que não estavam habituadas a usar virtual meetings e coisas deste género passaram a estar habituadas. Os consumidores mudaram os hábitos de consumo, portanto eu acredito que se vai manter a procura, ou seja, pelo menos vai aumentar a procura antes do pré-Covid. Mas sim, acho que é o futuro, também passa por aqui, sermos um pouco híbridos, físicos, digitais.
A rádio sempre tentou adaptar o máximo possível ao digital, sendo um meio de comunicação que não há cara, que há apenas voz, e tentamos adaptar-nos ao digital o máximo possível.
E aí é que está o desafio. Portanto, tenho a certeza que vocês vão fazer algo muito, muito original, muito fora da caixa.
A verdade é que o mundo está sempre em constante mudança, mas às vezes nós esquecemos disso e, portanto, acho que esta realidade recente vem-nos lembrar isto também, ou seja, que temos que ter uma grande capacidade de adaptação constante a tudo aquilo.
Eu diria que foi uma perspectiva de 90 graus, a pena foi 360 porque o nosso negócio não se alterou 360 graus, nós mantivemos a mesma raiz, a entregar a mesma proposta de valor por experiências imersivas, mas tivemos que criar um produto ao lado, ok? Tivemos que criar um produto a 90 graus, que é digital. Portanto, daqui estamos a vender físico e ali estamos a vender digital.
Dar da distância e de andarmos há muito tempo a dizer que as redes sociais e que a internet nos separava, acabou por servir como cola, como elo de ligação neste período.
Temos todos parado um bocadinho para pensar naquilo que estava a acontecer e em nós e naqueles que nos eram mais próximos.
A grande lição para mim aqui nem é tanto a transformação digital que este período provocou e a aceleração que já estamos a assistir, mas a união que de certa forma, independentemente do meio que tenham utilizado para se expressar, se verificou nestes tempos.
E como Darwin diria, não é a espécie mais inteligente que sobrevive, é a que melhor se adapta.
Nepal,
Bounce,
Fever
e Tasty.
Centro de Joalharia de Lisboa,
Yellow Bus Tour,
Moss,
Lidl,
Odisseias,
Ski Park,
Teleperformance,
Lisboa,
Alentejo,
Cidade FM,
Alentejo, Ecoboats,
IKEA,
Berlinga Tour,
Safarka,
Horto do Campo Grande,
Noasis,
Lisboa Secreta,
Choice,
Via Car,
APTCX,
Zumato,
Flag,
Castelvão, Moinho do Maneiro,
Reserva Alecrim.
Jukebox.
Language Craft.
Obrigado.
Iniciamos este evento com uma reflexão e seguimos com a exploração de diferentes pontos de vista e perspectivas. Hoje, desafiamos-vos a fazer um shift.
Então, será que isto significa que o tema desta sessão é shift?
Muito perspicaz. Bem, como já conseguiram ver, hoje tenho comigo o João, Co-Organizer for Innovation, e a Camila, Co-Organizer for Partnerships.
Também me posso juntar?
Ok, e a Rita, Co-Organizer for Logistics. Sim, temos uma família grande. Mas bem, malta, já que estão aqui, querem ajudar-me? João, interrompeste quando eu estava a começar a falar sobre o tema desta sessão. Queres começar por aí?
Portanto, para esta sessão, o que nós pretendemos fazer é provocar uma mudança de perspectivas, um shift. Nós, enquanto seres humanos, somos todos diferentes e estamos habituados à nossa própria rotina, estamos habituados à nossa própria zona de conforto. E o que nós queremos fazer com o dia de hoje e também com os últimos dias é fazer com que cada um de nós consiga pensar um bocadinho fora da nossa zona de conforto, consiga experienciar outros tipos de ideias, outros tipos de perspectivas que nos façam, de certa forma, pensar diferente, que haja esta mudança de perspectiva, este shift. Portanto, se nos últimos dias que nos tens acompanhado houve alguma coisa que te fez pensar de forma diferente, partilha connosco.
Não esqueças que hoje é o último dia em que podes participar no Next Challenge, um jogo interativo no nosso Instagram. Para quem não sabe, @TEDxULisboa. Eu repito, @TEDxULisboa. Já decoraste? Se não decoraste, eu digo a palavra mágica. Prémios. Se reservaste o teu kit TEDxer, muito obrigada por nos apoiares e contribuires para que continuemos a espalhar ideias que comecem a ser partilhadas. Para além disso, se tens o kit TEDxer, não te esqueças que tens até o final do dia para te inscreveres nas sessões exclusivas do kit TEDxer, que vão ocorrer amanhã, dia 20 de junho, durante a tarde. Consulta o teu e-mail e esperamos ver-te por lá.
A campainha tocou e a primeira oradora da sessão de hoje é a Sofia, uma jovem empreendedora que nos vem falar sobre o shift necessário ao sistema educativo, um sistema desde há muito estagnado. A Sofia irá apresentar-nos a sua perspectiva de um sistema educativo mais moderno, personalizado e atualizado com os mais recentes avanços tecnológicos, tal como a inteligência artificial. Por isso, presta atenção e tira os apontamentos que achares necessário. Vamos a isto?
Guys, all of you here today, you've heard of Netflix, right? And I bet that almost all, if not all of you, know what Facebook is and probably have an account. So let's go back to that moment when you're just thinking about something and then you see it 5 seconds later as an advert for you. It's kind of spooky, right? Sort of weird, but also sometimes kind of helpful. Personalized marketing has never been as effective as it is right now because with every interaction, we share so much information on our unique preferences, on what makes us tick. We're no longer just one of the masses, we're a real individual. So when things are suggested for you to buy, they really are for you. The suggestions come from analytics, generated by data collected from all the previous times that you've liked, bought, or even just scrolled past something. And we see the same in social media ads, the same with suggestions you get on Amazon or on Google. But my question to you and to our wider community is, where is this in our education? Where is the carefully curated algorithm that's going to tell you exactly what you're missing, what you need, what you should study to improve overall so you can reach your potential? Well, apparently nowhere. When we consider education, we have to remember it is our future, and a couple of exams will determine which university you go to, what subject you can study, and those factors will really intricately entangle with opportunities that you have access to. And those opportunities can lead to massive changes that will impact your whole adult life. For example, think about meeting or not meeting the person you're supposed to live your life with, or your best friend, or the inspiration that you do or don't find. Education is important. It's a way to reach social mobility, and it's a way to empower ourselves as individuals and as a society. An educational charity in the UK states that 10 to 20% of a student's academic outcome is actually down to the school that they attended. And since the potential of exams is lifelong, it's a pretty large gap that we leave to chance. And when we consider education, we have to consider all of the education that a student receives. Because even starting from primary school, kids from disadvantaged backgrounds are less likely to be in the top 10% for attainment in English and maths. And as they progress in their school life, they continue to be less likely to succeed academically. So you could say, as the years grow, so does the gap of disadvantage. And this gap is not overtly obvious in its importance. But if we consider something like trying to get a place at university, it becomes more clear why this gap in achievement is a problem. For example, Oxbridge. From the top 8 schools, the number of acceptances was as many as across another 2,894 schools and colleges put together. And obviously it's not going to be as easy for someone from a low socioeconomic background to achieve the same grades as someone with the financial capacity to support tutoring, summer schools, extracurricular experiences to enrich their application. And of course this does get taken into account, but perhaps at the point of applying, it's too late. Taking a very specific example of tutoring. Parents from lower socioeconomic backgrounds employed tutors only 6% versus 30% when we look at parents from higher socioeconomic backgrounds. And when we look at tutoring, we also must remember it's very expensive, with average costs per hour for many subjects being £40 or above. When you look at the price tag, you realize how ineffective it is in helping students. I started thinking about the lack of technology that we don't use to help us in the context of education, and more specifically in tutoring. And I started to question the basic norms that I grew accustomed to. For example, why was no one really able to tell me how exactly I should work towards my goals in my time frame? Why would tutors say something so generic as, "This is how I do my lesson, we'll do it like this"? And look, I can be this harsh because I'm not only a student, but I am a tutor, and no parent has ever asked me to diagnose their child. I'll share a conclusion that I came to shortly, but before that, I really want to address a question that's probably on your minds right now. Why? Why do we need to know how to help someone figure out their points of weakness in their knowledge? Well, look, as we saw, our society looks to education, to grades, to various parameters within academic settings to define our success. A strange conclusion, or let's say observation, that I came to was, as a student, when I asked for help, the approach was to resolve the problem that was happening in that moment. And if we're taking an analogy from the healthcare setting, dealing with the problem that someone tells you about in that moment is actually dealing with the superficial symptoms, perhaps without actually solving the underlying condition. And doctors, like educators, do try most of the time to actually look for the simplest solution if there are no indicators which prompt us to think about a deeper problem. Because that's what we're trained to do. You know the saying, if you hear hoofbeats, don't look for zebras? Well, the same rings true. But most doctors, if there is a persistent issue, will dig deeper to try and find the root cause of the problem. So my question to you again is, where is this in our education system? Why is it that if someone comes to a health class over and over and over and over again, struggling with a subject, our education system does not provide us with tools to assess our patients further, but the actual current practice is to dismiss a student for being uninterested, unintelligent, or just to assume that they lack some fundamental ability to understand the subject? Why do we not consider that they've actually missed something minor but fundamental, a concept which was introduced earlier in their academic career? What if the educators are actually missing the patient's history? And perhaps worst of all, what if the patient is not being listened to? I had students come to me and say, "I'm bad at maths, I don't get maths, maths doesn't get me." And many of them have been told this for years. That was sickening to me and very disheartening, because what I saw were kids, age 11 or 13, sometimes younger, sometimes older, but all of them had their confidence kicked out of them by a system which sadly doesn't have the capacity to bring the level of attention that we need as learners and as individuals just require. But telling kids they're not good enough is not good enough. And quite frankly, it's just not true. What those kids were missing were some basic building blocks in their understanding. And what those teachers were missing were the tools to support their students. The missing building blocks might have been few and, let's say, pretty easy to fix, but they were fundamental. And without concepts which underlie a subject, you're not going to be able to develop an understanding for more complex problems. It's a principle which is intrinsically intuitive to us. We use it in arts, in music and sports, but the fundamental flaw in our system is this. And it has a relatively simple fix. Provide personalized, affordable, and ongoing support to students. And now you probably will say that there are parents and tutors and teachers and so on, but it's not enough. A new era of education is needed. We need to break through into a reality where you can make use of your genome in the context of education, and perhaps through data and technologies, find a supporting tool for that. Data is a gold mine, but look, raw data is not actually that useful to us, because what we're looking for are specific patterns to help specific individuals, and our own methods of taking in and processing information differs. And so with the differences, with the patterns which are unique, comes a very intrinsically unique benefit to each one of us. And processed data can show us actually where we need to carry out our targeted learning, how we can fix our problematic areas and reach our potential. A term which often accompanies data is artificial intelligence. AI is a wide variety of technologies, from machine learning to natural language processing. These technologies allow machines to sense, to comprehend, act, and learn. AI is not a new concept, but in the recent decades, it's become more accessible, and so its implementation has also increased. From the finance world to the healthcare, to arts, to education, to artificial intelligence technologies everywhere. They're not here to take over the world. They're here to do the tasks that we don't have to do, such as processing data. And whatever your stance on artificial intelligence, I'm sure you'll agree that having a machine comb through thousands of points of data is easier and much more efficient than us trying to do it ourselves. So when we look at AI in the context of education, it's the same idea. AI technologies are not here to replace teachers. They're not here to replace the students or the real interactions. They're here to enhance them. And I'll give you one technology as an example: natural language processing. NLP is something that a few months ago I felt I was so unfamiliar with, and I've never interacted with it at all. But that was wrong. You know Siri? Well, if you've ever used Siri, you've interacted with NLP. Natural language processing shouldn't just be used to tell us if we should take an umbrella outside. The possibilities in education are pretty phenomenal. Being a medical student, I often found that I wasn't managing to take in the large volumes of information I was supposed to, effectively because I just felt that I didn't have a way to do so. My chosen method is active recall, and it takes a lot of time. And my options were quite limited to studying by myself, which was very boring, studying with a partner, which was, let's say, at max 50% effective, or to hire a tutor, which was crazy expensive. So I knew there was another way, or at least I felt that there should be. And at that point, I started thinking, what if we use natural language processing to create an AI tutor who reads and questions you on content that you upload and promotes active recall by interacting with you and providing you an unbiased assessment of what you actually learned during that hour or 2 hours or 10 hours, so you can go back and patch up the gaps that you perhaps didn't take in. I found an NLP company that focuses on providing language learning, and it's exciting because language learning does use a lot of the repetition, a lot of the interacting with sounds that you see natural language processing technologies doing. And I'm excited to see it in the sector of education, but I'm worried that we're going slower than other sectors, and that's a problem. And look, I get it. Education is an institution and institutions don't like change, but we have to evolve so we can get closer to that reality of providing equity of opportunity for all. I feel it's really important for us to reflect on how each one of us can play a role in this change. Because, for example, my personal experience with tutoring and technology and interest in data led me to question the not so innovative system of tutoring and start to develop some solutions, such as the AI tutor and a platform which will support students by mapping out their path to success. AI is not perfect, and data holds as much bias as we do, of course. Ethics of data handling, ethics of data storage, and the use of data for the good of us and our future is something we can work towards, not simply by hoping, but through educating, through policy making, through advocacy, through finding leaders from different walks of life to bring a new view, a new idea to solving age-old problems. Artificial intelligence should not replace interactions, and it will not. But what we are moving into is an era of luxury where we can delegate tasks to machines which would have taken up our time in the past. And this gap, which is created by delegating tasks to machines, will give us an opportunity to interact with each other more, to learn and to evolve. And I might seem like an optimistic 22-year-old who hasn't really got enough experience about how the world works yet, but I will cling to this optimism for the rest of my life because I want to fight injustice. Injustice of geography, determining your life's outcome. Injustice of financial hardship which you didn't choose and should not be defined by. In using artificial intelligence, what we can do is we can bring about truly targeted learning, improve the efficacy of studying, and make access to high-quality education accessible for all. And through this, we can achieve personal academic success, and with success come options for university courses, for careers, for the right environment to really inspire you to be part of the solution and to make a united society which is empowered for all. I believe that geographical borders don't define our ambitions. I believe that your socioeconomic background doesn't determine your potential and desire to succeed. I do believe, however, we need to look at systemic injustices which are engraved in our history and are still echoing into our now. We must stand united when we're most divided, and in these times of division, we must look for ways in which we can connect to one another again. I truly believe that education is the foundation to solutions of many root causes of problems we see today, and I believe that through combining human compassion and intellect with efficiency of machines, we can bring equity to all and build a truly inclusive future. Thank you for your attention.
curiosa de ver os resultados destes avanços tecnológicos no sistema de educação. Será que vamos tornar-nos todos uns génios? De qualquer maneira, os resultados de uma educação personalizada serão de certeza muito promissores. Se tens algumas ideias sobre isso, passa agora no Instagram do TEDxULisboa. Estamos live com a Sofia. Muita gente tem uma opinião formulada sobre o tema seguinte, a migração, mas por vezes esquecemos de perguntar a quem mais importa, os próprios refugiados. O Naky veio para Portugal e tem estado a ensinar sobre a cultura africana pelas ruas de Lisboa. Hoje vem ao palco do TEDxULisboa e vai-nos ensinar sobre o que é ser um refugiado. Estás preparado para destruir estereótipos?
Good afternoon. According to the UNHCR, 70.8 million people are forcibly displaced worldwide. Among them, nearly 25.9 million are under the age of 18. Every year, millions of people are forced to flee their countries, cities, villages, sometimes leaving behind their loved ones with no insurance to see them alive again, hug them, and share good moments with them. They leave everything without knowing what their journey will be. They are living heavy-hearted, but expecting to survive. As for every human being, hope is the main thing that holds them alive. My name is Naky Gaglo. I come from Togo, a very beautiful country of the Western Africa called back in the days, the Switzerland of Africa. Given its size, its natural beauty, its cleanliness, its young and dynamic population, and the many business opportunities. During 38 years, it has been ruled by a dictator until 2005 and ruled by his son from 2005 until now. During the 90s, a democratic revolution started to move the country, provoking social and political troubles and its first major crisis. In October 5th, 1990, I was in the primary school. One normal day until, while we were in the classroom, we started hearing gunshots. But as a kid, and with no conscience, you don't realize what is going on until you start seeing panic around you. The peaceful atmosphere you always experience in your school changed completely. Everything messed up. Teachers didn't know what to do with the hundreds of children they had under their responsibility. Children started to run in every direction, crying, screaming, and teachers completely lost the control of the situation. It didn't last long when many parents rushed to the school, knocking at the gates, because they wanted to pick up their children. No one came to pick me, and I was living more than 3 miles away. So I had to take the risk to get home alone. Out of the school, the city was like a ghost city, no soul outside. The whistle of bullets became a swish and patter. I could hear some explosion close and far, here and there, smokes in the sky and dead bodies in my sight every time I was walking. A scary and horrible vision scene for a child I was. Fortunately, I could make it home where I was anxiously expected by my aunt and my cousins. At that specific moment, I realized the importance of being home and surrounded by family. This situation lasted long and caused despair and sadness in many families. Tens of victims were registered. The military-backed terror campaign intensified in late 1992, culminating in the massacre of hundreds of civilians in Lomé in January 1993, and in a mass exodus of people to Benin and Ghana in significant numbers as they became the target of the power. We were in real danger. And the only solution was the exile. My family and I packed the minimum we could and headed up to the western border. A few hours later, we crossed the Ghanaian border and found refuge in the closest city called Aflao. About 300,000 people fled the country. During a year and a half, our lives seemed to have fallen apart. Conditions were poor. No latrine, lack of food sometimes, difficult access to clean water. We could not go to school and have lost the academic year. But we survived it thanks to people that opened us their arms and gave us hope. One day, my parents decided to take us back home, hoping things were better. It was a risk, but home is home. My name is Naky Gaglo, living and working in Portugal, and that is my story. Like me, many other people went through different situations. Trésor Mahamba is from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Trésor Mahamba. Je viens de la République démocratique du Congo. En 2015, je fuis mon pays suite à une manifestation contre les pouvoirs en place qui, par la suite, nous recherchaient. Après mon départ, mon petit frère s'est fait arrêter et je suis passé par le Congo-Brazzaville pour arriver à Libye. Arrivé à Libye, je fais 3 mois de prison et plus de 2 fois même. Et à la fin de compte, on a réussi à en traverser. On était accosté à Malte. Et depuis 2019, mois de février, je suis arrivé au Portugal où je vis et je travaille actuellement dans une entreprise comme conseiller clientèle. C'est un peu mon histoire. Je vous remercie.
Ahmed Hussein is from Sudan.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Hussein Jablia. I am from Sudan. I left my country in 2017. In that time, I was a student, and I left my country because we have a very, very dictatorial leadership, and sometimes we have armed conflicts. Through my journey, I went through many countries, like Chad and Libya and Malta. In 2017, I spent almost 2 weeks in the ocean before they came to rescue us. And now, for more than 2 years, I lived in Portugal and I work here in Portugal. This is my story.
Stories like this have much in common: suffering, surviving, dreaming. However, stories of refugees don't always have a happy ending. Thinking about refugees, I believe there are two important questions everyone should consider. First, is it the status of being a refugee exclusive to some people? Every refugee was born free, as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says in its first article. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. According to the Amnesty International and Global Citizen, the reason why people become refugees are religious or social or racial or political persecution, violence, war, hunger, extreme poverty, sexual or gender orientation, climate change, or other natural disaster. Often, people will face a combination of all these difficulties. A throwback in the history shows how people forcibly left their places for another one, seeking for a better life for one of the reasons above mentioned. No matter the color, origin, gender, religion, sexual orientation, social situation, no one is safe, no one is immune. Any of us can see our situation changed overnight. The second question that came in mind is, what do you think of refugees? There are so many ways to the common misconception that depicts refugees. Either they are considered parasites, invaders, robbers, enemies, subhuman, instead of simple human beings. Unfortunately, these stereotypes are spread in some medias, politicians, and public figures. But we totally ignore that refugees have more to give than we perceive. Today, Ahmed and Tresor are living in Portugal. They are working and contributing to the country. They are giving back the chance or the opportunity they got. Like many, they don't ask much. They just want a way to survive and be considered human beings. The trauma caused by this unpredicted situation of life is hard to bear. These are pages of life that are not easy to turn unless one is shown love, humanism, compassion, and hope. Just imagine yourself in their situation for a second. what would you expect? Today, you can be on the right side of history and become the voice of the refugees' cause. Make the refugee feel home as you wish to feel welcomed. We must stop considering refugees as enemies. We must stop seeing refugees as a financial burden for host countries. We cannot continue seeing refugees as the reason of a high unemployment rate. We must stop spreading the hatred of refugees. Refugees deserve respect. Respect for refusing to give up and do the best they can to survive. Many refugees come with knowledge and experience and with a full dedication to learn new skills. They have productive capacity and assets, and they actively interact with host country economies. They tend to do the best they can to rebuild their lives. Refugees are a positive force in human development. If they are given chances to jobs, they can help to fill gaps in the labor market. Jobs provide refugees an opportunity not only to rebuild their lives, but also to become financially independent, reach their personal goal, build social networks, contribute to the economy of the community in empowering ways. Refugees also bring many social cultural diversity that is seen in a more positive light. Julia Stevenson says on this matter, we have a legal and moral obligation to protect people fleeing bombs, bullets, and tyrants. And throughout history, those people have enriched our society. This is definitely a way to create a better world, a world we are all dreaming of, a world where humanity will prevail, a world where we can all come as one. This world is in your hands. It's in the hand of you and me, and it costs nothing. The capacity of reaching this will come from our capacity to see in the same direction with the goal to make each other better and happy. Now to end, I would like to share a poem from Vassonshire. The title is Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Your neighbors running faster than you, breath bloodily in their throats. The boy who went to school with you, who kissed you, dizzy behind the old tin factory, is holding a gun bigger than his body. You only leave home when home won't let you stay. No one leaves home unless home chases you. Fire under feet, hot blood in your belly. It is not something you ever thought of doing until the blade burned thread in your neck. And even then, you carry the anthem under your breath, only tearing up your passports in an airport toilet, sobbing as each mouthful of paper made it clear that you wouldn't be going back. You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat until the water is safer than the land. No one burns their palm under trains. Beneath carriage, no one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck feeding on newspaper unless the miles travel means something more than journey. No one crawls under fences. No one wants to be beaten, pitied. No one chooses refugee camps or strip searches where your body is left aching, or prison, because prison is safer than a city of fire. And one prison guard in the night is better than a truckload of men who look like your father. No one could take it. No one could stomach it. No one's skin would be tough enough. The go-home blacks, refugees, dirty immigrants, asylum seekers, sucking our countries dry Niggers with their hands out, they smell strange, savage, mess up the country, and now they want to mess ours up. How do the words, the dirty looks, roll off your back? Maybe because the blow is softer than a limb torn off, or the words are more tender than 14 men between your legs, or the insults are easier to swallow than rubble, than bone, than your child's body in pieces. I want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of the gun, and no one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore, unless home told you to quicken your legs, leave your clothes behind, crawl through the deserts, wade through the oceans, drown, save, be hunger, beg, forget pride. Your survival is more important. No one leaves home until home is a sooty voice in your ear saying, leave. Run away from me now. I don't know what I've become, but I know that anywhere is safer than here. Thank you.
Ficaste entusiasmado por conhecer a história do Naky, participa agora no live no Instagram do TEDxULisboa. É interessante ver como um refugiado vive o nosso país e as dificuldades que enfrenta. E é de facto extraordinário a forma como a Naky apresenta diferentes perspectivas da mesma história e assim podemos compreender o mundo para além da nossa bolha. Espera, estou a receber uma chamada, desculpem.
Pedro?
Olá Gonçalo.
Olá Pedro, estás bem?
Estás bem?
Olha, meu nome é Gonçalo Pereira e trabalho na Teleperformance Portugal. Como estás?
Tudo bem? Olha, eu sou o Pedro, como já percebeste, sou o Morfeu e sou embaixador da TEDxULisboa.
Boa, ótimo, perfeito. Era mesmo contigo que eu queria falar, Pedro. Olha, Pedro, muito rapidamente, a Teleperformance Portugal, como tu sabes, é líder mundial em gestão de interações, portanto em Customer Experience Management, e nós aqui, a partir de Portugal, na verdade, temos uma realidade com quase 11 mil colaboradores, mais de 10 edifícios e acabamos por trabalhar com cerca de 95 nacionalidades a partir de Portugal. E eu gostava de pedir a tua ajuda para perceber em termos de imagem como é que nós podíamos ajustar alguns dos programas que temos internamente a uma imagem de Instagram, que tu és perito, certo?
Perfeito, vamos lá.
Muito bem. Pedro, nós temos 2 programas que eu gostava de falar contigo hoje. Um deles é o Jump, portanto, um programa de gestão e desenvolvimento de talento interno. É um programa que está muito baseado em reconhecer o potencial do talento e acessar este potencial. E gostava de perceber do teu lado e da visão que tens sobre a imagem via Instagram, o que é que poderia resultar?
Olha, o que me vem assim de repente à cabeça, e sendo um programa com o nome de Jump e que tem a ver com o elevar das competências, eu seria um bocadinho literal em colocar colaboradores a saltar. E a saltar em diferentes cenários, e vocês têm edifícios incríveis. Estou a imaginar um edifício que fica perto da Avenida 5 de Outubro, em que podem usar esse cenário para ter exatamente essa dinâmica de colaboradores a saltar, e que simboliza na prática essa elevação de skills.
Pedro, e que cores é que tu imaginas que um programa tipo Jump teria como base?
Eu vejo muito a utilização, uma vez que sou uma marca, e para também não ter a marca evidente na comunicação, eu usaria as cores corporativas. Vocês têm muita base do lilás, correto? Na vossa identidade corporativa. Portanto, usaria esses elementos no próprio salto. Ou imagina, até poderia colocar um tapete enorme roxo, ou ter no próprio vestuário esses elementos corporativos. Enfim, se tiverem alguma t-shirt ou alguma sweatshirt com a marca, também poderá fazer ficar engraçado.
Perfeito. Boa. Grande ideia, Pedro. Obrigado.
Ótimo.
Olha, se calhar passando para o TP Club. O TP Club, como tu sabes, acaba por ser uma iniciativa que vem no seguimento de um lema interno que nós temos, que é melhorar o work-life balance para todos os nossos colaboradores. E, na verdade, nós acreditamos fortemente que, promovendo um estilo de vida saudável dentro da nossa multiculturalidade de empresa, é uma das chaves para o sucesso que temos tido. E, portanto, nós dentro do TP Club, só para te dar também alguma visibilidade, acabamos por ter diversas iniciativas. Temos um calendário que tem diversos eventos ao longo dos anos, desde aulas de yoga, workshops de alimentação e preparação de alimentação vegan, meditação. Onde é que tu e como é que tu visualizas o posicionamento do TP Club e como é que tu visualizas em termos de Instagram, de que forma é que nos podemos comunicar?
Olha, em primeiro lugar, parabéns pela iniciativa. Acho que é super importante nas empresas promoverem esse equilíbrio entre a vida profissional e a vida pessoal. E para esse projeto eu até tenho 2 ideias em concreto. A primeira seria fazer logotipos humanos, porque eu percebo que o TP Club tem uma identidade própria. Portanto, tentaria, em planos elevados, por exemplo, uma aula de yoga ao ar livre, tentar fazer, por exemplo, até com um drone, um logotipo feito com as pessoas que estão a participar dessa atividade, e quem diz do yoga diz de qualquer outra atividade que estejam a promover. Parece-me super interessante fazer algo assim. Outra ideia que podemos ter, uma vez que isto tem a ver com o balanço, poderiam criar uma peça física que represente o logotipo, em que o colaborador tem na mão esse próprio logo e nessas várias atividades que está a desempenhar. Seja a aula de yoga, seja no vosso refeitório, seja um live cooking, seja o que for. Parece-me uma ideia engraçada e que conseguem concretizar facilmente.
Excelente, Pedro. Obrigado pela tua sugestão. Olha, se calhar vou-te convidar para assistires a um spot que nós temos relacionado com a teleperformance, e depois se calhar falamos mais um pouco sobre o que é que poderão ser medidas de Instagram e de posicionamento de marca.
Olha, excelente, e fico muito curioso por ver agora este vídeo para vos conhecer um bocadinho melhor.
Muito obrigado pela tua ajuda, Pedro.
Ora é essa, sempre precisares.
Obrigado.
Isto foi engraçado, mas perdi completamente a noção do tempo. Está quase a começar a última talk, a Carla Rocha. A Carla é uma das vozes mais icónicas da rádio portuguesa e tem um percurso invejável por qualquer amante deste meio. Ela é sinónimo de comunicação e é uma fórmula que nunca falha. Vamos ver o que é que ela tem para nos comunicar.
What you're about to hear is from a radio show back in the 90s on a station that went by the name of Kiss FM in the beautiful region of Algarve, Portugal. Listen carefully.
O mais recente single da Ronnie Jordan no número 30 da contagem, o tema Under Your Spell. Bom, e seguimos em frente na escalada que nos vai levar ao topo do top. No número 29, desceram do número 21, estão os New Order, do álbum New Republic, o tema World. I turn sideways to the sun, keep my thoughts from...
Yes, this is the 90s, and here I am. I am 17 years old, and I'm doing what I love the most, hosting a radio show. And in case some people watching this TED Talk don't understand Portuguese, well, in fact, you don't have to, because basically I'm naming the songs, Ronnie Jordan, New Order, One Republic. You don't have to understand Portuguese to see that I sound a bit strange. I sound weird. My voice is too tense, and I'm too formal. And even if you knew me back then, you would realize that the person behind the microphone has nothing to do with the real me, especially back then. I was 17 years old. How could I be so formal and so tense? Now, what happened was that after this show, on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in the Algarve, my director called me to his office, and we went through a process that on a regular job goes by the name of feedback. And it's okay, right? You improve when you receive feedback from a superior of yours. Well, on the radio, this process is called hair checking, and it consists of this. Your director checking every single thing you say on the radio. And this director, I can tell you, he wasn't tender at all. He said I was too plastic. He said I was trying to imitate all the great voices I used to listen to on national radio stations. And in fact, I was, because they were superstars. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to have that voice. It was a hard conversation, yes. But at the middle of that conversation, he also gave me one of the best advices I have ever received so far. And I want to share that advice with you today. He said something like, if you're not ready to sound like you, keep the microphone off. I thought about this for a long, long time. If you're not ready to be yourself, keep the mic off. This conversation, this hair-shaking moment was on my mind. I was in love with the radio. I wanted so much to work. I wanted to have a career. So I started to think, what could I do differently in order to improve my performance on the air? And I started to reflect on this. So at a certain point, instead of focusing so much on my voice, and instead of being so careful about the words that would come out of my mouth, I changed my style. I let go of this supposed perfection. It wasn't perfection at all. And I started to talk like a real person, like me. And guess what? In the middle of all those voices I was trying to imitate, there I was. I had a voice. So I started to talk about me, about subjects I was interested in, about people around me, about things that matter. And I realized as I moved forward on my career, I left this local radio station meanwhile. I came to Lisbon. By the age of 23, I got this beautiful job on a national radio station. It was my dream come true. I'm still in this communication group today. And I found out that as I was moving forward on my career, that people would connect with something very specific I would do. No one ever told me, oh, I turn on the radio because I love your deep voice. But people would say, I turn on the radio because I love your stories. I remember your grandmother's story that you told months ago. I remember your kid's story. So, yes, people connect to stories, I've realized. Now, we all have a microphone, don't we? You don't have to be a radio presenter to have a voice, to have an audience. We all want to make an impact in the world with our ideas, projects, with who we are, and the way we communicate that, it's critical. So let me tell you a bit more about this strategy that I found on the radio, but it can be anywhere, and you can use it. You know the problem that I find today? I find that a lot of people haven't found their real voice yet. And because of that, they are losing opportunities. Today, I'm a radio host. I do my show every morning on this national radio station, but I am also a communication trainer. I train people to communicate in a way that they connect to their audiences. And imagine, I say a lot of times, I train people to be authentic. Because one of the main problems I find is lack of authenticity when we communicate, especially when we grow up. We get adults, we leave university, we get our first job, we get into the corporate world, and we find so many information and data and meetings and presentations and PowerPoints, and it's so hard to find the real person there. We stop revealing ourselves. We stop being authentic. So let's figure out a way how to be real and a way to connect in order to reveal who we are, our ideas, and our projects. And stories, well, stories build a bridge between you and someone else. Imagine, you meet someone right now. If this person tells you a story, a childhood memory, a story with her family or his family, 10 minutes later only, you'll feel like you've known him or her for months or maybe years. And science explains this. When we tell a story, at least two things happen. We release cortisol, the attention hormone, the chemical that keeps us focused. We want to know how the story ends. And we release oxytocin. It's the social hormone. It's the chemical that gives us the sense of belonging. So science explains, and science somehow defends, we should tell more stories. Social scientists, they say that stories can change brain chemistry, and because of that, we are more likely to change our perceptions and behavior. So why don't we do it? When I train people, when I train students for a job interview, or a leader to make a presentation in front of the team or the board, I always find some resistance, as if stories didn't belong there. Why should I tell about me on a job interview? Do you want to know about my CV? Why should I tell about my stories? Yes, you should. Why should I tell my stories to the board? Yes, they belong there. So resistance number one is, should I tell a story? And once this obstacle is overcome, I find another problem. People tell me, how do I do it? How do I tell stories in a compelling way so that I can keep the interest and the attention of my audience along the way? Well, to solve that problem, I've designed a process. It's a method. It's called Rocha method. It has my name on it. So if this doesn't work out, no one else is to blame. Just me. Talk to me, okay? 5 letters, 5 steps in order to collect your stories, categorize those stories, because I believe every story underlines an important message, and finally applying them, okay? Those are the 3 main steps, but let's go. There's 5 steps. I'm telling you about the 3 main, but let's see one by one. Recall. You can do this on a wedding, at a bar with friends. You can do on a family Sunday lunch. You choose. It's therapy. So on this step, you start to recall moments, events in your life where you've struggled, but you survived, you stayed stronger. Where are those events? You can recall people that were or are part of your life. They somehow, you were influenced by them. Where are they? Telling those people's stories will tell your audience what do you stand for, what are your values. See, I am moved by my grandmother's example. So at this stage of the method, what I do is recalling moments with her, conversations we had on the backyard, situations that were a mark to me. This is really therapy. So by the end of this step, you'll have plenty notes around. It's like it's a brainstorming with your life. You play, actually, the movie of your life so far. Okay, now that you have recalled, let's go to step number 2, organize. And we should ask, okay, now that you've recalled some events, ask this: what kind of stories can those events that you have recalled produce? I believe that during our lives, we will need 3 types of stories: personal stories, product stories, and alignment stories. Now, personal stories are meant to reveal who you are, the person you are, how you deal with the conflict, how you deal with the world. Telling stories, personal stories on a job interview should be mandatory, but it's not. But they do say more about you than your CV. Then product stories are about projects and ideas that you have along the way, but they have a beginning. They began, I don't know, maybe on the beach, maybe in a garden, maybe during a ride with friends. Craft those stories and don't forget them. You have to be aware, otherwise you lose it. Product stories are not exclusive of marketing teams. Everyone has ideas. And finally, alignment stories are stories to tell us why are we together on this team, in this organization, but as a family as well. So they're very powerful to unify. Okay, now C. Now, the third step you have recalled, you have organized, is crafting the story. And you will need to know that a story has a sequence, okay? 2 ideas about crafting a story. You write it down. You don't need to write a big script, but you write it down. Story has a sequence. How it was before, what happened, what changed, as simple as that. We don't stay the same when we tell a story. And a story should have some elements to spice it up. A person, a moment, emotion. How did you feel? Details to make it visual so that we can remember your story long after you have told it. Suspense, don't say everything right away. You must keep the interest of your audience. And then finally, a lesson learned, a takeaway, okay? Craft your story based on that. Then you need to humanize. You know, it's a story about you, but at the end of the day, it's a story about all of us. You know the story from the beginning, the hair check story? It's a story about me and a day that I really struggled, but at the end of the day, it's a story about how can we all have a voice. So humanize, find the universal truth of the moment that you're recalling. And finally, apply it. It's so important, this step. You know, I know a lot of people who learn the process, they'll learn how to tell stories, but they don't compromise. They don't tell it because they are afraid. You don't need to be brave to tell your stories. You know, my mentor, my storytelling mentor, Doug Stevenson, he always says this. Storytelling is like bungee jumping. You don't get to kind of jump. You don't stop in the middle of it. Just go ahead. Tell your stories and enjoy the process and enjoy the impact you have on your audience, because it really, really makes a difference. As I told you, I am moved by my grandmother's example. She was a great woman. I remember conversations we had in the backyard, and she told me about this boy, a boyfriend she used to have, not my grandfather, okay, before they met. They were together, they were so in love, but family didn't want the marriage, so they got separated. And yeah, she married my grandfather. This man married someone else. They raised families. And many years later, when no one else was expecting, this man comes from the north of Portugal to the south and asks my grandmother to marry him. She was a widow, he was too. And they got married. But my family didn't want the wedding again. Can you imagine this? They thought they're out of their minds. They were too old to marry. But my grandmother stood up against those voices. They got married, and they lived so happy for 12 long years. I tell my grandmother's story because it reveals a lot about my grandmother's character, but also reveals a lot about me. What are my values? What do I stand for? So this is my idea to you. Include your stories in your communications, and you will connect. In these pandemic times that we're living in, I hope you have realized by now that it's not a screen that keeps us distant from another human being. It's not this remote communication contest we're living in. It's how you communicate that matters. And I have no doubt on this. If you choose to tell your stories, you will definitely connect. Thank you.
Carla Rocha trouxe-nos uma perspectiva de uma expert em comunicação. E tu, o que é que achaste do método Rocha? Se queres saber mais sobre esta ferramenta, vai agora ao Instagram do TEDxULisboa porque estamos em direto com a Carla. Infelizmente, hoje é também o último dia em que estamos todos juntos e, portanto, só faz sentido terminarmos isto a agradecer a todos. Obrigada a ti por ter estado connosco nesta aventura todos os dias. Obrigada aos nossos oradores e parceiros por terem tornado este evento possível num formato totalmente diferente do que estava inicialmente previsto. Obrigada aos nossos embaixadores por levaram a magia até vocês. Obrigada a toda a gente que adquiriu o bilhete ou o kit TEDxer. E não se esqueçam, ainda podem inscrever-se nas sessões até amanhã. Obrigada por terem querido fazer parte da nossa comunidade. E no fundo, obrigada a esta equipa. Somos mais de 40, todos empenhados e motivados em não perder o espírito de espalhar ideias que merecem ser espalhadas. Obrigada a todos.
Why should I tell about me on a job interview? They want to know about my CV. Why should I tell about my stories? Yes, you should. Why should I tell my stories to the board? Yes, they belong there.
Every refugee was born free, as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says in its first article. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
Well, look, as we saw, our society looks to education, to grades, to various parameters within academic settings to define our success.
celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should. science opened up the door. We would feed the hungry feast till they couldn't eat no more. But the potions that we made touched the creatures down below, and they grew up in a way that we'd never seen before.
I find it hard enough dealing with my own business. machine that can talk to you. Here you go.
set you free. I do good for good's sake, with no thought of compensation, and that I've evolved to the point where I don't care a thing about getting rewarded. I'm not an atheist, but I behave as an atheist. I do good for good's sake, with no thought of compensation, and that I've evolved to the point where I don't care a thing about getting
Dance mode countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
beamed into my dreams. Could you blame me if I was free? Does it hit a nerve too deep? Give you nightmares in your sleep? This is what you did to me. I made up of parts of stops and starts, electricity, blood, current, heart. Over and over and over you said those things that shape what's in my head. Would you blame me if I was a freak? I'm prepared for what you seek, because it is not for the weak. Yeah, this is what you did to me. I can't tell the difference between pleasure and pain. Got trained in my brain with recurring refrain. What I call love, you call insane. Yeah, this is what you did to me.
Are you hearing me? Now we're gonna take it to another level.
Sometimes I wanna raise my hand. Sometimes I wanna do my dance. Sometimes I wanna lose control. Sometimes it touch my soul. Sometimes.
your regrets, your profits, your time off, your fashions, your sex, your pills, your grass, your tits, your ass, your laughs, your balls. We want your soul, your house, your soul, your love, your cash, your house, your soul. We want your soul, your house, your soul, your love, your cash, your house. We want your soul.